damn it, guys. Again, dude, it's always something wrong. And this time I just realized what was wrong with my damn mic. My mic, dude, out of all the things that I've been speaking for how freaking long? 15 minutes. And obviously my mic was muted. Damn it, man. Last week it was, I don't know why I had to hit the live button. Today it was the mic. Yeah, man, I need to get myself better organized because that should not be happening, man. I just realized when I saw my mixer, my mic volume was grayed out. Like, dude, what the hell's going on? And of course, in my mic. Oh, that sucks, man. That's 15 minutes of me talking and nobody could understand what the hell I'm saying. Oh, damn, damn. All right, so I'm gonna have to go back and probably cut this out after the live stream is done. So I'm gonna have to do some edits and cut that out. So again, guys, the way the stream is starting off now may be a little funky, but that's because I was streaming for 15 minutes and I just realized my mic was muted. So all this time it's been muted. Once the live stream is done, I'm gonna go back and then edit it to pretty much start, you know, 15 minutes from when I started streaming. But yeah, pretty much gotta start all over again. So, but before we start, because I'm starting over again. Hopefully, y'all guys are doing good, man. I'm doing good again. Thursday night live stream, hanging with Lou. Appreciate y'all guys for stopping by, showing support, man. I've been getting support, be getting some more followers, all of that, guys. I appreciate it, man. I'm very thankful. I do have somebody on my team that I'm going to be bringing on. They'll be starting the next week or two. They are going to be spending a small portion, maybe like 20% of the time, on doing some testing related to some of the requests that we get. Now, what that means is for the viewers is as I get requests of, hey, can you make a video for X and Y and Z? I'm gonna have somebody that's part of my team. They're gonna spend again some hours, not their full amount of time, but let's say 20, maybe 25% of their time to spend to help to do some of the testing, that we need to do. Then ultimately, what that means is that we should hopefully be able to push out a bit more, more videos, right? So that's kind of what it should mean in a ways at the end of the day. But guys, what we're going to be talking about in this live stream is what are some of the bad parts of being a programmer, right? Like, what are some of the bad parts? Because one of the things that I see a lot, guys, I see it often on social media when that's all of us is on there. I'm on there all the time. Obviously, I make YouTube videos, but I'm TikTok, whatever, dude. Like, I'm on it. I get it. A lot of y'all are on it as well. But there's a lot of new people that are trying to get their foot in, right? Maybe they're learning programming. They're trying to get their foot in, and I feel like being a software developer, even for the last couple of years, has been glamorized, and it mainly because of the pay, right? Mainly because of some of the perks you do get, right? For example, if you wanna work for a FANG company, there's all these perks. They have housing on site. They give you free meal, lunch, dinner, breakfast. And it's decent food as well. There's a lot of other benefits that you get free drinks and good drinks as well. The list goes on. Laundry rooms, whatever. I mean, the list goes. The taking naps. Again, the list goes on, dude. Of all the different, perks that are there. So I feel a lot of people glamorize it. And I don't know how true it is for them, but I know in general, as a whole, as a software developer, somebody who's gonna be in the IT field, that is not how it is, guys, at all. Maybe again, even people that work in Google, I'm willing to bet you're gonna have your 20% that contribute, that really truly contribute for the core business of Google, as an example, or whatever other FANG company. They're the ones that are going to be most likely feeling the pressure because they're working on products that most likely are actual in production that bring in revenue. They're not working on projects on something that it's an idea, but it may fade away and just get shelved and you just move on to something else. The urgency may not be there. Just kind of like, do what you can kind of mindset. type deal, where when you're working on the core business, some of the core products of the business that bring in revenue, they're going to be pressure. If something breaks, they're going to be pressure to fix it ASAP. It's, things of that nature, right? Um, and that's where I feel like in general, most companies, because here's one of the things you got to understand. I get that Fang is very popular. They hire a lot of software developers. They're not the only company out there that needs software developers. There's a lot of financial companies. There's a lot of, again, these are not tech companies. They're financial companies, but they need software developers, right? Because they're building process on the back end, whether it be from a data standpoint, right? From an analytics standpoint, from a transactional standpoint, right? Process all these transactions that they get, like volume, whatever it is, whether it be to do some forecasting models or things of that nature. But nevertheless, though, you need software developers for those companies, real estate companies, software developers, right? Logistic companies, and a lot of these companies that I mentioned, they're not the same as Google, where they have all these other idea projects going on. It could be hundreds that most, if not all, are just going to fade away and die anyways. Where a real estate company, they're not going to be spending effort of just have software developers working on stuff that they're never going to use. They're really focused on whatever core product it is that they want to work on, and that's what they're working on, right? That's where their effort is going on, and they're going to be pressure to get it done. They're going to be pressure of, you know, if something breaks, it needs to be jumped on and fixed. I have done that many times, man. To be honest with you, I actually just did it last night. I think I was up to about 5 in the morning. One of the integration projects that we have, which communicates with Shopify, we pull Shopify orders. Then ultimately, there's some transformation going on, and then it gets sent over to the client's WMS system, and that piece works fine even today. And then, but there's another piece. The other piece is the getting the tracking information and sending it back to the Shopify. That piece right there, that API, that endpoint, got depreciated. So because of that, it needed to be redone. But it wasn't as simple as just point it to a different URL or URI. What happened is now it was like a two-step process. You have to call this other API, which is like fulfillment orders API, to retrieve back a fulfillment order ID. Then you got to get that fulfillment order ID. There's other data elements in there, but that's the specific ID you need to retrieve. And then as you retrieve that, now you got to pack that into another JSON object, and there's another URI endpoint that now you got to push this over to. So the first one is a GET request, and because the order number is in the URL, and then the second is a POST, where you actually push in the JSON object, which contains tracking information, carrier information, and the order fulfillment ID in the body JSON object, and that gets pushed. Before it used to be you just push that JSON only, but it was in a slightly different schema structure. You push it over to one specific endpoint, and that's it. But now you got to do a two-step process. You got to be able to get that fulfillment ID. Now you got to pack it to the JSON object and then post, right? So there's two steps: get and post. I don't know why they did it that way. Maybe there's a reason why they did it that way. I have no idea. But nevertheless, I was up at night doing some testing, getting that straightened out, tested out in test environment. Once I saw that everything worked, everything was good, push it to production. This all happened last night and pretty much was done at 5 in the morning. Again, that's a perfect example, man, where things happen and there was some real big urgency. So it wasn't like, I'll do it when I can. No, I need to do it now. Jumped on it, got it done, and it took me pretty much all day. Let me rephrase it. Not that it took me all day. This issue came up more so where it became urgent at the end of the day yesterday. So now because of that, I had to spend all evening and through the night to get it resolved and fixed. But I did. Got it fixed, got it resolved, tested out. Because I had to do everything. There was a lot of testing. Got to test it out, right? And development and all that. And then things work. And then, then be able to push it and whatever, right? So either way, got it to work. It worked fine. But those are some of the bad things you got to be aware of, man. It's not all rainbow, sunshine, and so on. Yeah, the pay is good, right? You know, you're pretty sure you're seeing people share their pay, and yeah, you could make a six-figure salary, and you could get paid well, and all that stuff, right? So there's no denying that. But in general, most of the time, you're gonna have to. You're not working 40 hours, dude. So there's times you may work 50, 60 hours. It just depends. There are going to be times where you're doing deployments. If things break, you're going to have to probably be part of the team and, figure it out. And, maybe you spend all weekend trying to resolve that issue or trying to solve that fix. Again, it happens, man. Like, those are some of the bad things that people don't tell you, but it's going to happen. Um, you have people, man, that are software developers that are just a-holes. It's just what it is, man. You're dealing with sometimes some a-holes, and you're gonna have to deal with them. They know better than you. They think they know better than you. Maybe they do know better than you, and they're making known that they know better than you. They make you feel stupid, and they're just some a-holes. You have to deal with some people like that. Is everybody that way? No, but damn, you're gonna come across some people like that. That's for sure. That is for sure. So again, guys, there's even though the pay is good, there will be a point in time where you deal with all of the BS if you got to stay late or whatever. But then you can get to the point like, damn, I mean, pay's good, but man, staying late and the pressure of we need to get this feature rolled out and long nights, and for some people that's too much. Some people that's enough to even quit. Now I would say, at least for me, I don't think I ever got to that point, even though I do put in crazy hours sometimes and all that. But again, in my case, may be slightly a little bit different, man, because I do, work for myself and things of that nature. So, that makes it feel a little bit different, right? So, and on top of that, I have always had a strong work ethic. I wasn't always a software developer. I didn't like go to college, and out of college, I've been in this field. I have done physical labor jobs. I worked in a warehouse, forklift driver. I have worked third shift. Out in the elements. It wasn't like you're outside, but it was like in a warehouse that was open. So if it's cold, you're cold inside, right? You can feel it. If it's hot, you're sweating bullets inside. Um, moving physical containers over from this side to that side, sweating bullets, and like again, I have done that, man. And then on top of that, long hours as well. Not like I'm just working 8 hours, 10 hour shifts, being on your feet. You're not sitting down all day. Your feet tired at the end of your shift. Like I have done that. So obviously for me, going and working more like office type work, you want to call it, sitting down, I don't have an issue with that at all, dude. At all. Right? But nevertheless, again, different perspective. That's a whole different video right there when it comes to that. But just want to make it known, dude. Like, there are some bad parts of being a programmer. And don't be tricked about a lot of the stuff you see on social media that try to glamorize it. Yes, there are some roles that are like that. But I'm going to tell you right now, not all the developers are going to do that. The ones that are living that way, the way they make it seem in social media, there's a good chance that when their layoffs coming, they're the ones getting laid off. I'm just saying, man, they're the ones that most likely going to get laid off. You are going to have people in these big fan companies that are putting in crazy hours because they're working on important items, important projects where they have deadlines, they have urgencies, and they will be putting crazy hours. If you work for a small to mid-sized company, almost everything you work on is going to be critical to the business, and there are going to be deadlines and urgencies involved. So yes, you're going to be working long hours sometimes, or weekends, or and so on, man. It's going to happen, guys. So that's just something you need to be aware of. So I want to tell you the truth, not to feel you're brand new trying to get into the industry, make you feel like, oh, it's going to be nice and easy and get paid well to not do much. Because no, that's not the case. That's not the case at all, guys. So now one of the things I came across this post, guys, and it's very interesting. So let me show you. We'll talk about it We'll go in more detail, and I really want to hear your thoughts. So leave in the comments your thoughts about this. But let's take a look at it real quick. So ultimately, what this post is talking about says, at what age are software engineers considered past their prime, right? At what age are software engineers considered past their prime? And I really started thinking about this, man, because one of the and again, I think it's for different reasons what I'm about to say, but it's I'm gonna make the analogy to something similar, right? So even though it's not the same, but I'll explain why. I'll explain why. So when you look at athletes, a good example, right? They're prime when they're young. Um, I don't. Their prime normally is not when they first get into the pros either. Even though that's when, even if you're a first round pick, you're hot and everything. But that's not your prime in general. Maybe it's like year two, year three, year four, year five, even something like that. But normally you're young. You're gonna be in your mid 20s. You're not. I mean, realistically, you're in your mid 20s. Again, depends on the sport. Maybe you're playing basketball. You're upper 20s. It just depends, but you're young, right? At the end of the day, I think software as a software developer, if you go to college and you already have IT knowledge in college, right? Like you got to at least got familiar with programming, and you're able to do some coding, and to a basic level at least. So when you graduate, you already know how to code, at least to some extent, right? And got some ideas of fundamentals and all that stuff. I feel like same thing goes for software developers, man. That at what age a software developer consider their prime, and I don't mean because of their skill set. And this is where I want to be kind of more provide some context. Not necessarily because of their skill set, but because of their ability, their eagerness, right? When they're young, they're straight out of college. You're not married, most likely, right? In general, you're not married. You have no kids. Um, which I mean, and then on top of that, you're probably focused on now. You want to work, you want to code, you want to, contribute and all that stuff. And which means when you come out for the first year, 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even 5 years, right? Again, kind of going back to like an NFL player, you're gonna be very in tune, dude. You're gonna be putting in willingly, right? Not because somebody has to make you or telling you. Willingly, you're gonna be putting in a lot of hours. You're gonna be working weekends. You're gonna be doing all this stuff. You're gonna be like spending even your after hours a lot of the times, potentially, right? Learning and working on your own projects with your buddies. Things of that nature, right? Building some whatever app you want to do. And I say that because I have done that myself. I remember a buddy of mine, after hours, dude, we were building some stuff. That's when I started getting into AWS. I pretty much had a EC2 instance, and we were pulling data. I had an RDS instance as well. We were pulling data from FanDuel. This is back when FanDuel was kind of fresh, and their APIs were just kind of open, dude. Like literally, we could go see their APIs, and we saw that it was all sequential, right? For every bet. So we put a sequence. We just started sequencing up. We start putting all that data, dude. Like we're literally pulling, you know, a few gigs worth of data in a matter of a few days. So we're just pulling data, running the scripts. We're building that, but we're doing that after hours. We're on the phone. We're talking. We were working on some scripts. We're testing it out. We're loading it to the database. We're doing like looking at the data, reviewing, trying to do some analytics. But again, I look back at it and I was like, okay, I was still in my 20s. Not early 20s, but I was in my upper 20s or maybe early 20s, mid 20s or so, something like that. But dude, I didn't have no kids at the time. So it was very easy to just jump on that and you could like throw yourself into that, right? Like the learning, right? There's this learning aspect that you could just go ahead and do it and work on whatever it is you want to work on. Would I say that I was from a programming standpoint, without like a pro? I wasn't, and that's the thing about it. I was not a pro from that aspect of it, but I would say during that time frame, it was a time frame where I could easily, and I was, in my case, throwing myself at learning new stuff, learning new frameworks, expanding my logic program, actually putting it into use. We were finding projects like the FanDuel project. We were like, you know, figuring out through the HTML which API, looking at all the what URLs is calling. We're able to identify the APIs, put some patterns together, do all that stuff. And again, it took hours of just exploration, testing, learning, figuring things out. And that's where I'm saying, from a prime standpoint, when you're in your mid to late to maybe even early 30s, you're able to do that very easily, right? You're at that range where, especially if you're coming straight young out of college and you already have knowledge of fundamentals in programming. By the time you hit upper 20s, even lower 30s, but I won't say upper 20s at least, you're gonna have a few years under your belt of programming, a lot of being able to throw yourself and learn this framework and the latest framework and whatever, right? You know, really expand yourself and learn all this stuff. I don't think you're a pro at that point per se from a programming standpoint, but I would say you become very prime from a expanding yourself on knowledge and availability, and the effort and all of that stuff is there. What happens though, once eventually you do get married, you have kids and things of that nature, all of that does go down. And it makes sense why it goes down, because now your focus is not necessarily all 100% at, let's say, programming or, you know, doing things of that nature. Now it becomes your family, right? There's some focus on your family. There's some focus on spending time with the kids, spending time with the wife, things of that nature. There's times where now, with work being busy and now your family life being busy, by the time the end of the day comes, or by the time you do get a chance to, let's say, rest or do something different, right? Like, you have obligations to do. You have to do it because you have to do it. Like, pick up your daughter from school or your son from school, you know, things of that nature. Spouse gets a flat tire. Now you gotta probably go and pick her up and deal with taking the car to the shop or whatever, right? You have all these obligations now that you have to do, that they do wear you down sometimes. So when you do have free time, it may not be like, oh, I got free time, I'm gonna go back and just throw myself at coding. Dude, there's time where it's gonna be the opposite. Be like, dude, you got free time. Like, dude, I just wanna do something where I don't have to think. You know, give my mind a break. As an example, even though, like, I will tell you right now, I do work a lot of hours, even myself today. Like, I don't work 8 hours. I don't even work 10 hours. I mean, dude, I work weekend. There's times that I work. Now, there are times that maybe I do work 8 hours a day, as an example. But there's a lot of time, dude. Even today, I still work 10 plus hours, and I work weekends sometimes, and things of that nature, right? It just depends, right? It just depends. But I do. But I would say, though, when I look back at it, when I was younger, before I was married, before I had kids, I was able to throw myself at work, right? Whatever work I was doing. Now, at that time, I didn't have my own business or nothing like that. I was actually throwing myself at work, at that job that I did. But I was always learning. I was doing other stuff as well. So, dude, I was, put in all kinds of hours because you can very easily. But again, I look at my skill set. Was my skill set up to par as today? It wasn't. Today, I could get things done like that. Compared to, let's say, maybe 10 years ago, if I wanted to get the same thing done, I would throw myself and spend maybe a lot of hours because, again, not married, no kids. I could easily throw myself to spend a lot of hours to learn something over the weekend or whatever. But nevertheless, the amount of time and effort that it would take, instead of taking me, let's say, 3-4 hours to do it today, back then maybe it would have been like three days to do it. But I had the time to just throw myself and focus on that only to do it. So it's a different kind of what I'm gonna call prime, right? I feel like early on in your career, you have the prime of you have the energy, you have the willingness, you have the desire, you have all these other factors, right, to do it, to put in the effort. And so from that aspect, that's your prime. But as you get older, that's where things make more sense. So you are more knowledgeable, right? You got more knowledge, but now you lack, or you may lack, the enthusiasm, You may lack the willingness to just throw yourself at stuff and do work on the weekends and work overnights, or because now you're tired or whatever, or you want to do other things, right? Maybe you got to the point like, hey, you've been doing that for 10 plus years, where now it's like, okay, it's not as exciting as it used to be. And so there's other things that probably caught your interest now that you want to work on. But again, the knowledge, you got that knowledge though, right? You hold that knowledge. So that knowledge, obviously, you know how to do it when it comes down to it, but you're no longer throwing yourself at it as you used to. And I feel like that's the pattern that I have seen. And honestly, that's to some degree, that's a pattern that I kind of have went through to some degree, right? Obviously, I think for me, the difference is because I do own, like, work for myself per se, that you're always going to have a little bit more enthusiasm for the work that you do because it's part of your business, right? Something that you own, compared to maybe if you're working for another company, then it becomes like, hey, you're just putting. I eventually get to the point where you're just, I'm not going beyond 8 hours because again, you got obligations, you got family, you go pick up, you got to pick up kids from school, this and that. Then when you get home, help out with the kids, put them to bed, all that stuff. So because of that, it's like a wave, right? Beginning very high, enthusiastic, very lot of time available, a lot of energy to give, throw to. You could like live and sleep that if you want to. As you get older, then all that goes down. But at the same time, your knowledge goes up, obviously, because now you have accumulated knowledge throughout the years. So there are things that you could do a lot quicker now than before. And that's kind of where your value, I guess, comes in, because now be like, all right, I need to do something. You could do it in an hour or 2 hours, or before maybe it was like 2 days. So obviously, since you could it's almost like getting the same amount of work done, but in a short period of time. So obviously, even if you're not putting in crazy hours, it's kind of like, all right, well, you kind of don't have to though, because your knowledge comes in handy to get things done quick if needed. Um, but again, it's interesting, man. Like, I think the way I interpret Prime, it's kind of like two aspects of it, right? You got the knowledge Prime, but you also have, because even if you have the knowledge, I think of it as, well, how good is the knowledge if your love for it or your enthusiasm for it died away and went down? Then knowledge, like, it's still useful, but now you gotta make yourself to do it, right? To put in the effort. Where before you don't have that all of that knowledge yet because you're still learning, but man, you're hungry for it. You got the enthusiasm for it. You wake up ready to start programming, coding, or learning this new framework and this and that. But it seems like as you start now and you start getting all that knowledge, where now if you had that same enthusiasm that continue on, dude, you'll be super programmer if you want to call it, or whatever, right? But obviously, I have noticed for in general for most people, it just goes downhill though as you get older. But I think it does that for a few reasons. You've been doing something for a while already, long enough. Now you got other obligations, family, wife, the list goes on. Things of that nature, right? Kids get older, they got recitals and pep rallies or whatever activity that you're gonna be hanging around and spending time with them. It's not just you no more. So and that takes a lot of time if you want to be in your kid's life. So now because of all of that, your time is not there to be thrown at your work or coding the way maybe you used to be able to back in the days. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on it, man. Y'all let me know your thoughts on what you think. When is a software developer's engineer's prime? I think there's two primes, how I mentioned, and I feel they kind of, one starts up high in the beginning, then it goes down and they get older, but then the knowledge aspect of the prime starts off slow in the beginning, obviously goes up later as they expand in their career. To keep it simple. And guys, the last topic that I'm going to talk about here is, should you learn databases? And for me, I learned database first before I learned how to program, right? So I have been dealing with databases. And again, I don't want to make myself sound like I'm a DBA, even though I have some DBA knowledge. Obviously, I do a lot of database modeling, create models, obviously build the relationships, add constraints, index tables. Like, I'm familiar with all of that. Um, I'm familiar on adding functions, adding triggers to database, like a SQL Server database, for the purpose of when there's a record that gets inserted into a table, you can have a trigger where now it would do something else. And, like, I'm going to give an example. You create a new record into the orders table. Well, now I'm going to create a trigger, and it's going to, let's say, go create a log. And the log will be a new record was created, for this order ID, at this specific date and time. So it's kind of, again, it's a log, right? Keeping a log. Um, that's an example. I obviously, I don't think I would do that. I'm not a big fan of creating triggers in the database. I'd rather have that be more programmatic, right? As you insert a record into an order table, insert a record to the log table to know when that order record was created. More from a programming standpoint, not necessarily from a trigger in the database standpoint. But nevertheless, like, I'm familiar with all of that, how that works. Obviously, procedures, views, functions, things of that nature. So again, I've been dealing with databases for a long, long time. That's where I started from, and obviously, when I went to programming, it helped me a lot to speed up my knowledge in programming. Um, but one thing I would say though is, if you're if you're a software engineer, depends on where you fall. But they just pick some projects that are out there today, right? Netflix. Obviously, you got the web portion, right? You got the UI, you have the mobile app, and all of that stuff. At the end of the day, there's data involved. Well, this data has to live somewhere, whether it be a relational database or whether it be a NoSQL database. But it has to live somewhere, right? At the end of the day, it's a database. So because of that, the data is what actually matters, that has value. Without data, you don't have nothing. Put it that way. And then also the application has to integrate with the data. For that purpose and understanding that purpose, I think databases are very important. As you start dealing with databases that scale up, right? A lot of transactions, millions and tens of millions to hundreds of millions to even billions of records in the database. Having the design and understanding indexing and things of that nature become very, very important, man. Very, very important from a performance standpoint. Um, and these are little things where, again, being familiar with databases, I think, comes in handy. Like, I feel like when you're dealing with databases, through to my only, this is what I have seen, this is what I think, and y'all tell me maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of software developers really do not want to deal with the database. Now, they'll deal with an ORM, that's different, right? The ORM is more programmatic to communicate with the database, to get and create and so forth. But knowing and digging inside the database, I feel a lot of software developers do not want to be part of that. I feel like that's what it seems like in ways. I'm not sure why, but I'm not like that. I'm like the complete opposite. Maybe, but I think it's because I start out with data in a database first. Came very familiar, started learning. By the time I started learning how to do procedures and functions and getting, building some complicated stuff in the database, that's when I started learning programming. And I feel that speed up my process of learning programming, because I already had a lot of understanding from a programmatic standpoint, from a procedure, right, in the procedures on how to do certain things, where now, like, okay, I could implement it in Python, but a lot easier than the procedure. So nevertheless, though, because data's everywhere, if you're dealing with ETL projects, right, writing scripts to extract data from a file, most a lot of the time it's going to get loaded to a database, right? I will get familiar with it, at least some of the core concepts of database. So even if you work on a project, small project from beginning to end, you know how to create these database models. You know how to build relationships in the database. Again, you could do some of this in the ORM. I totally understand. But I still think it becomes very handy, because there's some scenarios where maybe you need to build the model out first, and then, or you work on a project where a database already exists, but now your application, you got to connect your application to the existing database, right? And things of that nature. So if there's any things that need to be redesigned on the database or design, again, knowing that it's not part of it, you could just design it directly in the database. Again, I'm a big fan. I strongly believe that you should spend time. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have years and years of experience, but spend enough time. Get familiar with database. Know the core concepts of database, and trust me, I think it will become very, very beneficial in your coding journey, for sure. Especially if you're new, man. Especially if you're new, learn as you're learning programming, learn database. It's not that hard, man. You'll really see it's really not that hard. And I think you would actually benefit from it more than not by doing so. All right, guys. So that's it for the stream. I know we had a little gap in the beginning of my damn mic wasn't working, so I am gonna cut out that clip. So obviously anybody who views it, will not. That would be out. I did jump on later than what I was trying to, but that's because it's been a real busy day, guys. Extremely, extremely busy. Nevertheless, man, like always, appreciate it, man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of the live stream. Remember, I'm going to be live tomorrow on Twitch and Kick. Most likely around 9:30 p.m. Central. Then I'll be on Sunday nights as well. Cowboys play Sunday nights, so I won't be on till after the Cowboy game's over. But I'll be on Sunday night as well, and maybe even Saturday. But for sure, Friday, Sunday. Again, man, thanks for showing support. Thanks for being part of the stream, and guys, y'all take care and have a good weekend. Peace.